Hey all, I hope everybody's enjoying the first weekend of the Burr months. I can tell you for one, I'm extremely excited that they're here and that we're finally out of the triple digits in weather. In the Pacific Northwest, we've been at about 100 to 106-ish for about 3 weeks. So today it's overcast and in the 70s, and my tree is turning from green to colors of yellow, orange, and red. So I'm very happy and very excited that it seems like colder weather and spooky season is on the verge of happening. So the last installment was actually supposed to be a ghost story. I have a lot of my stories pre-written and I had it in a file under ghost stories, but it was more of, I want to say, a mass shooting type of scenario, which is still a good story, but it was not a scary story. So this is a scary story that has to deal with ghosts, so I hope you enjoy. In late 2007, a young woman and her daughter had moved from Oregon to a larger town in California, believing that living in a larger city would create more opportunities for the young single mother. She packed to go try her luck in Chico, California. She did love the town, but her reason for being there did not pan out. She had some money saved from a housing project that she had worked on with her father, but with her not being able to find work, she was quickly chewing through that. Being that she was younger and all of her work experience was in the food industry and on this housing project, she was really limited to the type of career she could pursue. Being a single mother also didn't help her work search because most people her age had no responsibilities and open schedules. After about 8 months of giving it her all and getting nowhere, she was down to her last $5,000. Knowing she only had a few more months of rent and food money, she was dabbling with the idea of moving back home. She figured that she would apply for a job near her hometown and let fate decide. She applied for a sales job that sounded amazing, and even though she had no sales experience, the hiring manager could see where the experience that she did have related to the sales job, and he decided to take a chance on her. She called up her dad and told him the news, and in previous conversations they had been discussing this being a possibility, and he had already agreed that her and her young daughter could come stay with him if everything went through. So she rented a U-Haul and her dad drove to help her load it up, and once the last boxes were in, they closed it up and headed back to her hometown. Where she was living, she was going to be about 20 miles from where she'd be working, so she would have a little bit of a drive to get there, but she was still able to stay with her dad, which saved her money even with the commute. Now, her dad is a very money conscientious person, even though he didn't need to be. He had a really good job as an engineer, but he would go shopping for his clothes at Salvation Army. So the house the three of them were living in together was actually a 38-foot fifth wheel travel trailer. The young mother and her daughter stayed in the bedroom, and her father slept on a pull-out couch downstairs in what the living room portion of the trailer was. Though it was a tight space, especially with a young child, they made it work. That is until one day the granddaughter was playing around, and in travel trailers there's about 1 inch tall lifts where the slides are. So if you've never seen the inside of a travel trailer, some have pop-out sides and slide areas, usually in the bedrooms and living room area, that give it about an extra 4 feet of room when they're expanded, making the area larger inside. So in order for these portions to slide in and out, it's has about a 1-inch lift that slides over the carpet so it can be closed for traveling purposes and then be opened up when you're staying and sleeping and parked. So her grandfather, the little girl's grandfather, in a past life was a very talented woodworker. He carved redwood trees, animals, even some life-size animals, clocks, signs. He had owned his own business doing this in his younger years, but eventually life brought him to engineering. So he had this swan carving that stands about 5 feet tall, and obviously it's a swan, so it has a thinner neck area. Well, a kid playing in a fifth wheel trailer can be kind of shaky, plus this 1-inch lift equaled a decapitated swan. So it took a lot for him to shove down his emotions, but realizing it was an accident and that there just wasn't enough space in this trailer for the 3 of them, he started looking for a house. Pretty quickly after he started looking, he found a 2-bedroom mobile home that was a steal. It needed a bit of work, but in another past life, he did home renovations and carpentry, so the house needing some improvements wouldn't be too much of a cost to do it himself. After a little negotiating, he went ahead and bought the place for the 3 of them to move into once the renovations were finished. This mobile home was a little older and had older materials like fake wood panel walls that they would paint over, and old dingy carpet that was probably the original carpet from the 1970s, so that's where they started. The young woman and her daughter would help on her days off, and when they were painting, her dad was ripping up the old carpet that smelled like cigarettes and mildew. After he had the carpet out, his daughter noticed an area close to the kitchen bar that had a dark orange area, and she asked him what it was, and he replied, there was just a metal object that had been sitting there, and because it's Crescent City and it's the coast and it's really humid, it had just rusted through the carpet and down to the paneling on the wood floor. So the house had been empty for a while. There were no temperature controls on because it was empty. It had kind of a greenhouse effect inside, so it made sense to her and she accepted the answer. After enough remodeling had been done, the 3 of them moved into the mobile home that was much larger than the fifth wheel trailer. The young woman and her daughter would share a room just off the second living area, and her father would take the master bedroom that had an attached bathroom with a garden-style bathtub. His granddaughter loved taking baths, so she already had her eyes set on that since they'd first been in the place. One of the renovations that was not yet completed was the bathtub in the bathroom her and her mom would be sharing. So, she really had no other choice than to take baths in her papa's garden tub, and she didn't mind that at all. One day the little girl was in the bath and her mom could hear her playing, and it sounded like she was talking to someone. So she went in to check it out, and it was just her daughter in there. It just looked like she was playing, and she looked over at her mom and smiled and said hi and then went back to playing. Her mom told her 5 more minutes, okay? And then 10 minutes later, she headed back in with a towel, and they would start her daughter's bedtime routine. Her mom asked her, who were you talking to? Someone in there? And she replied, yes, I was talking to the man in the drain. Her mom quizzically asked her daughter, the man in the drain? And her daughter would go on to explain that almost every time she takes a bath, the man appears and he sits on the edge of the tub and talks to her, and then when we pull the plug, he goes down the drain with the water. The little girl didn't seem frightened at all. Her mom knew that kids are more susceptible to seeing spirits, but there's really nothing she can do about a ghost anyways, right? So it didn't seem to be doing any harm, but all of that would soon change. One evening it was bath time, and the little girl Angel, yes, her name is Angel, she wasn't feeling very well, but she wanted to take her bath still, so her mom ran the water for her and got settled. It was laundry day, and her mom had a few loads of clothes to fold that were just laid on the bed, so she needed to get it done before bedtime, which was rapidly approaching. Since Angel's papa was home, and he was in his room anyways, talking to his girlfriend on the phone, who just a few months earlier was his eHarmony's best match, Angel's mom asked if he would keep an eye on her, and he agreed. So Angel's mom left the bathroom door open so her papa could see her, and she went in the other room to fold clothes. Since it's a mobile home, the walls are really thin, and the house is set up where the bathroom that Angel was in taking a bath was right on the other side of the wall where her mom was folding the clothes, so her mom could hear her splashing and playing in the tub. Being so intent in her laundry folding, she was trying to hurry up and get it done before bedtime, so she was like really focusing on it and just getting it done. She had kind of realized it'd been a while since she heard her daughter, which seemed really odd, and she just was struck with the sense of urgency to go check on her. So she rushes into her dad's room. The first thing she noticed is that he's not really paying attention. He's on the phone, kind of just in his own little world talking to his girlfriend, and somehow the door between his room and the bathroom had gotten shut about halfway, making it impossible for him to see his granddaughter. So Angel's mom flung the bathroom door open, and her heart dropped. She didn't see Angel at all. So she hurried over to the bathtub to peek down inside. It was a tall edged tub, so when she finally got close enough to see inside, what she saw still shocks her to this day. Since Angel hadn't been feeling well, she had played for a while, but the warm water had made her sleepy, and she lay down for a little bit, and feeling very warm and relaxed, she had fallen asleep in the tub. When her mom burst in and looked in the tub, Angel was laying on her left side towards the door, but she was more on her stomach turned than on her side, and the angle she was at and the fact that she was sleeping, her muscles would have been relaxed, and by all accounts her face should have been underwater, but it wasn't. Overwhelmed with so many emotions in that moment, Angel's mother noticed that her daughter's face should have been under the water, but it was floating above it, with her mouth, like the corner of her mouth and her nose, just right above the waterline, as if someone was holding her face up and making sure that it didn't go underwater. She grabbed her daughter, scaring her awake as she was sleeping and didn't even realize she had fallen asleep. Angel's mom was just so relieved that her daughter was okay. She just hugged her. She had a few choice words for her dad. And after Angel was out of the tub and wrapped up in her leapfrog towel with a little hood, Angel's mom reached in and pulled the drain plug, and as she looked back to her daughter, she saw that Angel was looking towards the bathtub and smiling, and in that moment, her mother knew exactly who was responsible for saving her daughter's life. Years and years later, Angel's mom was talking to her dad about how Angel would see the man in the drain, and how she believes that night, all those years ago when she fell asleep in the tub, that he saved Angel's life, and he didn't seem really surprised. He just said, "That makes sense." And then he would go on to tell his daughter why he had gotten such a good deal on the house. It wasn't only because the house was older and needed some TLC. It's because the lady that sold it to him was in prison for murdering her roommate in that house, and she just wanted some money to put on her books so she could buy toothpaste and shampoo for the next 20 years to life. And that rust stain she had noticed when they pulled up the carpet was actually a blood stain from where the man was stabbed and lay dying before she drug his body into the bathtub. I hope you enjoyed hearing it as much as I enjoyed telling it. Oh, and a little FYI, this story is personal to me because the dad in the story is my dad, the daughter in the story is my daughter, and the girl is me. So this is my story on how my daughter's life was saved by the ghost in our house. I love to share this story because I hear so much that people think ghosts are evil and that they're mean, and if they die violent deaths, then they're terrible. And that was not my experience, and that's not what I've seen. So I love sharing this story, obviously for multiple reasons. He saved my daughter's life, which is really cool. And that spirits aren't mean. I don't think they're mean. I don't think they're out here to harm us. I mean, he saved my daughter's life and he died a terrible, violent death. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, love, share, subscribe, do all the things. I promise, promise, promise I'm going to try to start doing them every week instead of like once a month like I have been. It's my ADD and my busy schedule, and it just slips through the cracks sometimes, but I really do love telling the stories, and I feel like since spooky season is upon us, I might actually do it every single week. So I promise I'm going to try. Remember, like, love, share, comment, subscribe, and fingers crossed, I'll see you next week.